Okay, apologies for the delay, everyone. We are now ready to start, and I will now call this BiodGRID Joint Board of Management meeting to order at 2:03 p.m. We'll start with the territorial acknowledgement statement. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge with respect the history and living culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. We recognize that these lands are the territories of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, collectively known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the keepers of this land. Georgian Bluffs is located on lands encompassed by treaties 45.5, 67, 72, 82, and 93. We reflect on our role as treaty people and the need to live in respect and peace and show respect to the First Peoples who inhabit these lands and waters. Moving on to approval of the agenda, does any member wish to add items for discussion today? Seeing none, the recommendation is that the agenda be approved as presented. Going to have a mover and a seconder. Mayor Mackey, Deputy Mayor McKay. See if I can keep this straight. Is there any discussion? I will call the vote. All in favor. That is carried. Does any member wish to declare a pecuniary interest? If none, you may declare at any time throughout the afternoon if one should arise. Next, for minutes from the last meeting, the recommendation is that the minutes contained herein be approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? How about I just reverse it? How about we just have the clerk reverse their names on each one so I don't get confused on the last names?
Practice makes perfect.
Sure. Deputy Mayor McKay and Mayor Mackey. All in favor? That has carried. Delegations. We have MNP draft 2025 financial statements and audit findings letter. The recommendation is that the board approve the draft 2025 financial statements. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Mayor Mackey, Deputy Mayor McKay. And I will call on MNP to present to us.
Hello.
I'd like to start with the letter to the board. It's the document with the fuzzy mug picture on top. I'd like to thank the board for inviting me to your meeting this afternoon. I'm Robin Strangway-Calder. I'm the engagement partner on the audit, and I stepped into Tracy Smith's role upon her retirement. I'd like to thank Samantha and her team for their assistance during the audit. As your auditor, we have the responsibility to communicate to those charged with governance annually. The contents of this letter will look familiar to prior years because they are prescribed by the Canadian auditing standards. It does include all communications that we need. And so I'll provide a brief overview of the letter itself before moving over to the statements. If you do have questions as you go, or as I go, please feel welcome to stop me and I'll answer them if I can, and we can wait to the end if that's your preference. So at this time on the overview page, this basically outlines that MNP has substantially completed our audit of the 2025 financial statements. In order to release finals, the board does need to approve them, and that's why the statements at this time have draft across them. Once the board approves, we also get management to sign a representation letter that is, again, required by Canadian auditing standards, and it basically says they've given all the records to us to perform the audit, and we need to perform subsequent events work up until the date of approval, which is just to say that nothing happened after year end. It should be reflected in, say, the note disclosures. At the bottom, we refer to the independent auditor's report. So unless unforeseen complications arise, our independent auditor's report will be qualified similar to prior years. So our opinion has been qualified due to the inherent nature of tipping and sewage fees, which are not susceptible to complete audit verification. Accordingly, our verification of these fees is limited to the amounts recorded in the biodigester. And basically that means we can't audit their completeness. There's no way to know, did everything that got dumped get reflected in the records? That being said, anything that's in the records, we verified that there was receipts or support for them being recorded. That's consistent with prior years. So in every other regard, it's a clean audit opinion. There's just that one piece that we simply can't audit. It's similar to donation revenue qualification in not-for-profits, where we just can't audit the completeness of it. Moving on to the significant audit, accounting, and reporting matters. I can report that materiality used for the audit during the 2025 audit was $19,000. We always have to have a discussion about fraud, and during the audit, no incidents of fraud or suspected fraud came to our attention. Should anything come to the attention of the board, we do require you to reach out to us directly. In regards to internal control matters, well, our review of controls was not sufficient to express an official opinion over internal controls. There are no significant deficiencies was discovered during the audit. We do still have an economic dependence note in note 5, which basically states that the board requires funding from both the Township of Chatsworth and the Township of Georgian Bluffs. And if we move on, annually, I do need to confirm that MNP is independent, and I can confirm that we are independent and therefore can issue an audit opinion. There is a more detailed letter included in the appendix to this report as required under Canadian auditing standards. We did not identify any unadjusted differences during the audit, which is to say any adjustment that should be made during the year was represented in these statements. So that's why there's no schedule of unadjusted differences like there may have been in prior years. So that's really the highlights from the communication. Do you have any questions about the letter itself before I move on to the statements?
Questions? I'm not seeing any. Well, thanks, Robin. Carry on.
And if we can move on to the draft audited statements, please. And the audit report is where I'm going to start. So an audit is the highest level of assurance that can be provided by a public accounting firm. Management is responsible for the financial statements, and the audit report itself is the only part that kind of belongs to MNP. As I already went over in prior year, similar to prior years, the report contains that qualification. So in the second paragraph is where you see our actual opinion, and it says, in our opinion, except for the possible effects of the matter described in the basis of qualified opinion section, our report, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the organization as at December 31st, 2025, which is to say, other than that one piece of revenue, it's a clean audit opinion. The remainder of the audit report outlines the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance, in this case the board, as well as the auditors. If I move on to the statement of financial position, which is page 4, or also known as the balance sheet, this shows the financial position as at a point in time, December 31st, 2025. You can see that total assets at the end of the year are $812,082, of which $300,000 was cash. The future capital receivables of $238,988 are owing to the biodigester by each of Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth. There have been no capital levies during the current year or the last few years, but these are past capital levies recorded as revenue by the biodigester in that prior year and transferred to reserves. So essentially a portion of the reserve is held by Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth, which you can see in note 3. So in note 3, there's the accumulated surplus breakdown that includes the reserves of $477,976 cash held by Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth, and $130,137 of the reserve is held in cash by the biodigester itself. In the liabilities section, you can see that there's $75,000 owing back to each municipality. These were for amounts loaned in prior years to the biodigester for operating cash flow purposes. And there is $25,967 owing to Georgian Bluffs for expenses paid on behalf of the biodigester. You can see that this decreased a lot from last year, and so the biodigester cash flowing that amount that had been owing to Georgian Bluffs in years past is why cash decreased so much in the year. The accumulated surplus is made up of $2 million in net tangible capital assets, and then the remaining portion is the reserves. So I just wanted to pause here for a moment because it's worth noting that right now the balance sheet looks similar to prior years in that the tangible capital asset, being the biodigester facility itself, is still sitting at worth $2 million. And there's also no asset retirement obligation liability recorded, whereas in public sector accounting standards in 2023 introduced the asset retirement obligation section. Because the biodigester is still under a certificate of operation with the Ministry of Environment, it doesn't actually require an ARO liability to be set up until such time as a decision has actually been made to no longer operate it and notify that to the Ministry of Environment. So that's why there's nothing in regards to an ARO liability in these statements. And then the other is, right now, the biodigester has been kind of in this state of deciding where to go with it. And so the asset continues to be amortized on that straight line basis every year. But again, should decisions be made in the next months, year, 2 years, these statements might start to look a little bit different to reflect the operation decisions that are made. So I just kind of wanted to point out that although this looks the same year to year, as discussions start happening at the board level and the council level, you might start seeing some of those changes reflected in the balance sheet going forward. Nothing for 2025, but it's just something to kind of worth noting at this time. Yep, do you have a question?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think, if memory serves me correctly, both councils made the decision back in October to decommission it. We're now today's meeting is actually accepting some of the recommendations for the amount for the decommissioning. So I think it was mothballed probably over a year ago. Well, yeah, it certainly was over a year ago, but the decision by councils, I think, was in October. So should that be reflected anywhere, that the decision, you're kind of leading me to believe that there's been no decision, but there has been decisions by the councils.
So as far as I'm aware, Ministry of Environment, and we did inquire about this, Ministry of Environment has not been notified to end the certificate of operation, which is to say it could technically still operate. So until that notification formally goes to the Ministry of Environment, there's no asset retirement obligation liability.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, and so then kind of with that, since it could technically operate, no formal write down of the assets has been made to date. But if you continue down this road, even if the Ministry of Environment isn't formally notified, if you continue down this road, potentially in 2026, there will be an asset write-down beyond the annual amortization, I guess is what I thought was worth bringing up. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So on the next statement is the statement of operations, and it shows the, it's the income statement that basically shows the operations that went through 2025. There was no capital contributions and no capital expenses in 2025. Therefore, the revenues and expenses all relate to annual operations except for the $156,146 of amortization. And then I wanted to point out that in professional fees, although it does agree to budget, it does include what are hopefully one-time studies and engineering field fees related to the feasibility and the potential decommissioning that was incurred in 2025. The annual deficit of $113,000 reported on this page includes that amortization, and therefore it's not the operating surplus for the year. On the next page, we see that that deficit of $644 is adjusted for the amortization and comes down to an increase in net financial assets of $42,502. And that's the net amount that was transferred into reserves at the end of the year. So that's why you see an increase in the reserve balance. So that's a high-level overview of the financial statements. Does anyone have any other questions about the financial statements themselves?
Any other questions? Go ahead.
So the actual deficit of 113,644.
Yep.
It's really, when you include almost $100,000 from each municipality, the deficit is really closer to 300,000.
Yes. So if the Chatsworth and Jordan Bluffs weren't funding it by $100,000, then yes, it would be closer to 300. And that's why there's that economic dependence note that has appeared in statements, which is to say without that funding, the board maybe couldn't continue operating.
But there's also then the amortization amount, which really isn't.
Yeah, it's not a cash outflow in the year, so you could take that off and you're then back to roughly a $200,000 deficit, but it is still a $200,000 deficit.
Good business.
Pardon me?
Good business.
Well, when you think of it in terms of a municipality providing a service, sometimes have to think differently, but yes, that is, but you bring up a good point. That's why all these discussions have been happening over the last year, is to decide on the future.
Any other questions for Robin? See.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I will then call the vote on that the board approve the draft 2025 financial statements. All in favor? Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Next item is Paul Hindle with A1 Toilets, and I'm assuming Paul is online here. So
Hello.
we have a presentation coming here.
Yes, can you hear me? Can
CEO.
everybody hear me?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So Mr. Hindle is going to join here. He is coming to represent A1 Toilets. So he had reached out with an interest of having a delegation to council to request an agreement with the BiodGRID committee to use the facilities. So I asked him to appear today and do the delegation. So hopefully he's still online with us. I did send him a message and let him know he'd be up next.
Mr. Hindle, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me? You can't hear me?
We can now. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, all good. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for your time today. Again, my name is Paul Hindle, and I am an owner of A1 Sanitation. Today, I am requesting permission and an agreement that would allow our company to unload hauled sewage at your municipal lagoon facility when that sewage originates from within the township of Georgian Bluffs and the township of Chatsworth. I have operated in this region for more than 36 years, myself first as an employee and now as a business owner. Throughout that time, the town of the Blue Mountains has accepted our hauled sewage 7 days a week. However, their transfer station is currently closed for maintenance and upgrades, a project expected to last up to 1 year. This closure has created a significant challenge for our business and many of our customers we serve. Although the town of Collingwood has agreed to accept waste from the town of Blue Mountains, I have been left without a permanent and reliable unloading station. As a result, I have reached out to other municipalities and townships where I operate. Some have granted permission for disposal at their treatment facilities, while others have not. In every case, I have only requested permission to dispose of waste that originates from within that municipality. Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth represent a large portion of the area where we provide service. Our company supports a wide variety of businesses, organizations, events, including marinas, golf courses, construction sites, landscapers, wedding venues, campgrounds, cottages, community events, roadside work sites, and many others. Most of these operations rely on portable sanitation services to function effectively. Without a local facility where I can dispose of waste collected within these townships, I may have to reconsider whether I can continue operating in these communities. This would not only impact my business, but could also affect dozens of local businesses and hundreds of residents, visitors, and customers throughout the year. At the present time, I am transporting all collected waste to a facility located more than an hour away. While I am grateful for their assistance, that arrangement is temporary and could end at any time without notice. It is also costing my company thousands of dollars in additional fuel, labor, vehicle wear and tear, and disposal fees. Furthermore, it places an unnecessary burden on another municipality's treatment infrastructure for waste that does not originate within its boundaries. The volume of waste I am requesting permission to unload is relatively small. During the slower season, I would anticipate approximately 1 load per week, and during the busiest summer months, perhaps 2 to 3 loads per week. My trucks are not large vehicles. Our tanks hold either 350 gallons or 550 gallons, which is approximately 1 to 2 cubic meters. In many cases, the tanks are not even full when they are unloaded. We simply need a location where we can responsibly dispose of waste collected while servicing customers in your communities. I want to emphasize that I am not seeking permission to bring waste from outside Georgian Bluffs or Chatsworth. I am only requesting the ability to dispose of waste generated within the municipalities that I am serving. I respectfully ask council and staff to consider this request and explore the possibility of putting an agreement in place with A1 Sanitation. I am happy to answer any questions or address any concerns you may have. And I would also like to thank CAO Thompson for taking my call and helping coordinate this presentation today. And I thank you all again for your time and the consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hindle. And I will turn to Deputy Mayor McKay. I have a question.
Mr. Hindle, Township of Chatsworth here, Deputy Mayor. How many pickups would you have percentage-wise in the Township of Chatsworth compared to Georgian Bluffs? Any idea?
How many what, sorry?
Pickups, how many of these places do you have in the Township of Chatsworth? Because I know we use other services.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an exact number of like construction toilets I have compared to marinas or golf courses, but in total, at any given time, there could be on average of 100 portable toilets throughout Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth. In the winter, it's mainly just construction sites. In the summer, it's everything from the marinas, the golf courses, the rest stops, cottages, wedding venues. Our busy season is generally from the 1st of June through Thanksgiving. And other than that, it's just construction sites and some of the quarries that might fall into Georgian Bluffs and whatnot.
So I think what's being asked is, are you able to give a percentage of how much of your business is coming from Georgian Bluffs as compared to how much from Chatsworth?
Not at this exact time. I couldn't give you a number of.
Okay.
There's definitely more in Georgian Bluffs than Chatsworth.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Mayor Mackey.
Thank you, and through the chair. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Hindle. You commented that you only want to send material from Georgian Bluffs and from Chatsworth. Does that mean the rest of your material will continue to have to go an hour away? Like, would you, if you could make a request, would you like to send more material to our site?
So since the closure of the transfer site, which we've dumped at for 36 years, I've got approval from South Bruce Peninsula up in Wyerton to unload waste there, and they've made it clear that I can only bring waste there that's generated within South Bruce Peninsula. Owen Sound has given me a place to unload as well, but they have requested that only waste comes from within the city limits of Owen Sound. Collingwood right now is accepting waste from many places for me, whether it be Clearview, Town of Blue Mountains, and currently Meaford, because Meaford's dump station currently has a pump broken, which is causing us a little bit of a problem because we haven't been able to dump there for about 3 months. So their waste right now is also going to Collingwood. So Collingwood's taking on quite a lot of sewage waste from us currently, which I'm trying to slow that down and dump in other municipalities where that waste is generated from, hence Chatsworth and Georgian Bluffs. But yes, I have reached out to lots of other communities and tried to get the waste in every community to be dumped in their community. And that's what I'm asking you guys for today, is just let me unload my waste from Chatsworth and Georgian Bluffs. I'm not looking to add any more to the lagoon from anywhere else, as I've secured other places to unload.
Okay, and I would think the next part of this would be a costing amount. Do we have a dollar value on this, or do we have ideas there? I guess I'm looking at staff here. See if anyone has an answer.
I'm just turning to our clerk. Do we have an existing agreement with other septage?
So all of this would be under that same, is it under fees and services? I'm looking behind the CAO to our treasurer. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, so the board did amend their fees to be, don't quote me on it, but I believe it is $15.18 per cubic meter that is disposed. What I don't know is how many cubic meters may be disposed to give an estimate on how much revenue may be generated.
So it would be following the same fees and services that are already in place, so we're not making any special agreements here on this.
My recommendation not to have
Yeah.
an alternative fee would be to maintain the.
To maintain that fee, yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm not sure who I should look to, but as far as from a capacity standpoint, is there any issues? Do we need to reach out before we make a decision to Aqua to make sure that, I don't think this is a large amount of material, but just like to know that we have the capacity.
Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you, and through you, we can reach out to Aqua to gain a better understanding. However, when we had reached out, when this board was evaluating the change in fee structure, at that time, they had indicated that there was sufficient capacity that you were operating at. I believe it was approximately half of what the total capacity was. Again, we can confirm that with Aqua if that is something this board would like.
Shouldn't be an issue.
I would think just in case, we would want to have that double checked before we go ahead and give approval, but at this point,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I apologize for not being able to to answer the question that was directed through me. I'm not a bio numbers person, not the right person for the job, I'll admit. I was just going to suggest that perhaps the direction coming in today could be a very general direction to staff to investigate an agreement and bring forward the confines of that to the board at a later time.
Do we want to wait and come back to the board, or do we need to?
My concerns about coming back to the board, it's really, really. I would like to urge us to maybe find a directive here somewhere, because I can imagine, I can appreciate we can find this out fairly quickly, but having us gather again to execute an agreement is gonna be really difficult, and Mr. Hindle needs us right away if we're able to.
Go ahead, Mayor Mack.
I would move that we accept the proposal of Mr. Hendel to bring materials from Chatsworth and Georgia Bluffs to the digester, to the lagoon.
Yeah.
Contingent upon staff reviewing capacity and the amount that we've already established for the tipping fee, I think should be the same, so it would just be the operational capacity. As long as staff can get that information
Yeah.
confirmed, then I have no problem moving that we accept the material.
Appreciate that.
Seconder?
Question, Mr. Hingle, does he know what, the tipping fees are now? I mean, they're likely obvious out there if you want to
Yeah.
dig into it.
So, the two off the top of my head I know are, it's about $18 a cubic meter for the town of Blue Mountains is what we've been paying there for years. And $25 is Owen Sound. Owen Sound's a $25 a cubic meter rate. We have yet to receive a bill from Collingwood because we started dumping there within the last month. So we actually are unaware of what their cost is, but we didn't have any choice other than to take it there regardless of what the cost was. So that will be coming soon. And Meaford, it's similar. It's similar in that $18 to $25 range. Most places that's kind of the average.
We just want to be sure you knew an idea of what that range would be. So I think we have a motion on the floor that we proceed as long as it's confirmed that there is capacity that can take it.
I do.
Sounds good.
Sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair. I do have some information I can offer. This is the report that our treasurer has referenced. Tipping fees as at September 2025 are $15.83 per cubic meter. So that's our charge. Our review of the lagoon capacity at that time reported that we do have the capacity. It's at currently accepting about 35% of total annual rated capacity. Happy to look into that and make sure that we confirm that subject to your motion, but just thought I'd provide that information before we move forward.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
You'll second it? Okay, so question?
I think the questions have been answered, so
Yeah.
I'm willing to move that we go ahead and accept the material.
Okay.
Do a contract, give it.
Okay. Does the clerk have that motion down that we can go ahead and vote on it now?
Thank you, through you. I do. I have also added that staff be delegated the authority to negotiate and enter into the agreement on behalf of the board.
Okay. Everyone's okay with that? Okay. All in favor then? That is carried. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hindle, and we'll leave it to you to work out the details with staff and move ahead then.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We have no correspondence. The next item is the staff report about the partial decommissioning of the biodigester. So the recommendation is that the BiodGRID Board of Management recommend to the councils of the Township of Georgian Bluffs and the Township of Chatsworth that staff be authorized to proceed with GHD's proposal dated April 24th, 2026 for partial decommissioning of the Georgian Bluffs / Chatsworth biodigester facility and provide direction whether this project includes optional demolition of the biodigester. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor McKay, Mayor Mackey, and I'll turn over to CAO Thompson.
We probably have other businesses that I'll bring it up then at the end.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to present this report. This report is seeking the board's recommendation to councils of Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth, authorizing staff to proceed with GHD's April 2026 proposal for the partial decommissioning of biodigester facility. The board is also being asked to provide some direction on whether the optional demolition of the biodigester itself should be included. GHD has joined us, a couple representatives today to help answer some technical questions. I'll say from the start, I was a flunking chemistry and science student, so technical information is not going to be my strong suit. As the board is aware, the biodigester infrastructure is no longer operating as intended, while the sewage lagoons remain active. Over the past year, GHD has completed the planning work to assess future options for the site, and the work identified as partial decommissioning as a practical middle ground option that reduces the risk and liability without committing to the full cost of complete site removal. The current proposal moves that work into implementation, includes the regulatory approvals, hazardous materials review, cleaning and assessment of certain tanks, the engineered drawings, permit coordination, and the selective demolition of the inactive biodigester related infrastructure. It also, as stated before, includes an option to demolish the biodigester tank itself if the board wishes to recommend proceeding in that direction. The estimated project cost is $731,000 without the demolition of the biodigester, and $868,700 if the demolition is included. With respect to the financial implications, staff are recommending that up to $500,000 be funded from the future capital reserve, with the remaining balance shared equally between the Georgian Bluffs and Chatsworth. This would leave a municipal share of $115,000 each without demolition, or $184,000 each with demolition. In staff's view, this is a practical next step, reducing the risk to both townships, updating the site's regulatory framework, and addresses the inactive infrastructure while preserving the continued operation of the sewage lagoons. While there are standard project risks and some pricing uncertainty that you will have seen in the proposal, given the expiry of the quote validity period, those risks appear manageable through financial contract clarification and contingency planning before award. So I referenced the expiry of the quote period. So when we received the quote from GHD, they did put a window of acceptance on that we've been had a really difficult time meeting. We didn't meet that timetable. I reached out to the consultant to say, would we anticipate that they would hold this number, or would we anticipate the cost would change? Without a commitment, so the consultant that I talked to wasn't able to bind the corporation, but said, you know, if our intention is to move in a relatively expedient fashion, that he didn't anticipate a big change. So the board today could consider that in their motion in terms of addressing that window had closed and the quotes that existed at that time. Staff are recommending that the board support proceeding with the partial decommissioning proposal and provide some direction about whether or not including the biodigester demolition is worth moving forward with. As I said, consultant is with us today and able to help with the science questions.
Thank you. And I will turn to the board for questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess through you to our consultant, the question around the biodigester or the tank, you know, the decommissioning of that, is there any liability to leave that tank there? And is the tank connected to the larger tank that we are keeping? I'm just thinking going forward, will there be, as part of a possible business case for keeping the other two tanks, is the biodigester tank connected, and what is the liability, I guess, if we don't decommission it? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. For the connection piece, I will need to confirm that. I can look at that pretty quickly. There is some piping. I'm just looking at the site plan here. It does look like there is some piping that shows there is interconnectedness. So there's a pipeline that goes between the two digestate storage tanks, and then that pipe does connect to the digester tank. So you do have some interconnectedness there. I would probably, the functionality of that pipeline, if there's any pumping equipment required, that would require some additional review by our team. That is not my forte, but if that is a concern, I can certainly ask someone to confirm that for you. From a liability perspective, right now there is sludge built up, residual sludge in the tank. So if you are thinking of leaving it, we would recommend that that sludge be cleaned out. Just because, if there is any deterioration in the future, you have a risk of environmental releases. But from a long-term perspective, there, the risk is basically just, safety and security of the site, making sure that it's secure because those tanks can also collect rainwater as well. But if it's cleaned of the sludge, I think the risk for environmental release when it's just rainwater, that minimizes that risk. I don't know if that fully answers your question.
Yep, thank you.
Do we know how much is is sludge in there? Has your company investigated that at all? Or?
Yes, I believe. Just give me 1 second. I have that number here. It is. I think it's around 300 cubic meters. Just one moment here. So yes, in the digester tank itself, there's 300 cubic meters of material remaining.
Okay, so I think my impression of this had been that on that digester tank, it would be totally cleaned out. But I think the question is, once it's cleaned out, if there's no environmental risk, is there any advantage to totally demolishing that tank? Or would we be okay with leaving that tank standing? Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't believe there would be any issue with leaving that standing once it's cleaned out, as long as you're maintaining the security of the site like you are for the other tanks currently in the operation of it.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so any other questions? Go ahead.
But sludge, if we take it out of there, where would it go? Could it go down the hill and be put into our field, or is it a lot better to transport it out of town?
So I think cleaning that tank out was part of the quote, so whether it's going into the lagoons or being taken off site, that's still all included in the actual amount that we're being quoted. Am I correct in
Yes.
that?
That's right. So we've assumed at this point in time that it is suitable to go to the lagoons. We will have to take a sample of it just to confirm that it is suitable for that. If it's not, then it will have to go off site.
One way or another, if it went into the lagoon, suitable, would your price be reduced? Or
No.
If it had to be trucked out of town, it's going to be more of a cost to your company.
Yeah, so our proposal currently assumes that it's suitable to go to the lagoon.
Okay.
That's
so
the base
if
assumption.
it has to go off site, is there a potential upcharge?
Paul, I don't know if you can answer, was there any contingency included in that for the sludge?
Hi team, it's Paul here. I've been called on just to answer a quick question and provide some clarity on the assumptions. From a perspective of emptying the digester tank as opposed to the digestates, we did assume that the sludge would be going off site, but that liquid resultant from cleaning would be going to the lagoons. So we would have carried not as a contingency, but think of it more as the more expensive course of action As the council has pointed out, that would be off-sited.
Hey, thank you, Paul, for
No
confirming.
problem.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Mackey, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess when we're talking about the digestate tank, like in the proposal, GHD will empty, clean, and assess the status of the 2 digestate storage tanks and provide recommendations on their reuse. I'm wondering if we could just add the additional 3rd tank, to that line that they assess, because there may be some operational benefits for us to keep it without completely decommissioning it. So if that could just be part of the scope of work when they're already assessing the other 2 larger tanks, just assess 1 more, it's going to be cleaned out also, and just to give us a better idea on what we want to do moving forward.
Yeah, we've actually included that. So in the option that we do not complete the demolition of the digester, in that 731,900 line item, we have included the digester tank in the condition assessment. So it would be for the 3.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I was getting confused on the different storage locations when I read this.
Any other questions? Or is the board ready to vote, or? Go ahead.
Sorry, threw you back to Ryan. How, the timing, how far out were we on the timing of making the approval?
Thank you for your question. So I think the price was held for a month after we received. Just checking to make sure of this. Yeah, so we received the document at the end of April. It was held for a month at the end of May. So we're within roughly 6 weeks, a little bit more of receiving this. So I don't know that our consultants that are here with us today are able to talk about or find the consultant to a price, but the board could consider moving forward with a caveat that the price in the quote is extended to our date today.
They were going to start work on the 15th, right? And hopefully be completed by the end of August. I think it's mobilization for
It looked like
dewatering.
mobilization for dewatering and cleaning was to occur starting last week, yes.
I would hope that they would honor the commitment based on the short turnaround time, but.
Not wanting to put
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to comment. So yeah, I think if the agreement is that, we're looking to proceed in the very near future here and kind of this early construction season, I think we are able to honor that pricing with the caveat, we'll confirm with the contractor's availability to confirm that has not changed. But, we don't see it. We could likely proceed and still, stick with that similar length of time with that caveat that we just need to confirm their availability.
Go ahead.
I will move that we go ahead with the price that's been submitted.
So are we amending the motion we currently have on the floor, or do we need to?
Through you. Yes, I would suggest that it is an amendment to this motion. Additionally, I'd like to point out that the very bottom of that direction asks for direction on whether the scope would include the optional demolition. So I'm not sure if the board would also like to address that in an amendment to proceed or not to proceed with the optional demolition.
Maybe that the board did not believe that the optional or further demolition is required or something to that effect.
Yeah, so the direction there would be to not proceed with that optional demolition. So we would be going forward with the lower price that was quoted.
Thank you through you. So I can capture that in an amendment to the motion. And that also that approval of the proposal dated April 24th is conditional upon GHD honoring the quote provided. Oh, jeez, I don't know why that was so hard to get out.
Any further questions?
I had asked it earlier, just between us is, we go in and the construction company starts decommissioning the whole area. There is equipment in there that could be benefit to some other company, whatever. So we hire this company to do the demolition. Do they retrieve and keep everything that's on that site? Or how does that work?
I think we'll turn to the CAO here.
Thank you, it's a good question. So the condition in the proposal is that GHD assumes that scrap and salvage materials generated from demolition and removal is property of GHD, and the concrete block from demolition activities are suitable for backfill.
And we'll be backfilled on site then? Because there will be, is it fats, oils, and greases, that part where it's going to be dug out, so there would be backfill required.
So it says GHD has assumed an approximate value of imported material for backfill. Requirement for backfill is an excessive and quantified value to be deemed a change in conditions. So I'm not sure if our representatives are able to speak to that.
Sure. Paul, are you able to answer that one on that condition on the backfill?
Hi, everyone. So the assumptions we made as it relates to whether it was partial or complete demolition were, as the quote states, breaking up and pulverizing of concrete or concrete and block, and utilizing that material as backfill within the facility, and not so as to control any costs that may be otherwise incurred by the townships for disposal of that material. It does assume that that material is both clean and suitable for that use and purpose. We don't have any indications that it would not be. As far as the assumption of what we've carried for imported material, that was basically a covered all statement to ensure that we would not be bringing in either excessive fill or finish grade with anything beyond a granular material. So when that work would be complete, whether it was the complete demolition of aspects of the site or the partial demolition and decommissioning, it would be a granular top. It would not be a graded and top seeded with turf or anything like that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if staff could put up on the screen the overview of the site. You know, when I'm not sure what is going to be, what cement is going to be, having to be removed. Now that all the tanks are staying, I guess I'd just like someone to point on a picture, actually what's being done. Like, I understand the building and all the digesting tanks need to be cleaned out, but what is actually going to be?
Hydrolyzer?
Is anything going to be tore down? And what that is?
I'm wondering if it's the hydrolyzer, because that area is underground, and if that needs to be taken out of there and then filled in.
Yeah, I just like confirmation.
Yeah.
If our consultants could just tell us what they're going to be actually crushing, what cement's going to get crushed.
Sure. So yeah, if you scroll down to figure 6 in this report. So this here shows the partial decommissioning option. So everything highlighted in gray would, oh, sorry, this one. Okay. Oh, partial decommissioning. Oh, right. Okay. So this was from the first report where we talked about,
Yep.
in the initial report, it had the digestate storage tanks and the digester tank being removed. But we know that since this report, the decision was made to keep those, retain those for potential future use. So those 3 in gray are going to remain. The hydrolyzer, so that will be clean and punctured to allow for drainage of rainwater. The in-ground biogas cooling bed, that'll be excavated, and the infrastructure underground removed there. The building, so that will remain. We'll remove any equipment associated with the biogas facility itself, but any of the equipment related to the ongoing operation of the lagoons will remain. And then you'll have the biogas generator and the fog storage tanks will be removed in those areas. So it is, like you did mention, it is very limited concrete removals because you're not removing the large tanks or the building pad.
Thank you, that helped a lot.
Okay.
I'm more comfortable moving ahead now, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, do we want to have the actual recommendation read out? And I'm also looking to Township of Chatsworth staff to see if you have any questions or concerns that you'd like raised before we move ahead.
Thank you, I'm Mayor Carlton. I think we've been working with your staff as well, and I think we're confident on this report. The one thing that stood out to us was certainly the cost from September estimate to now, but I think our treasurer's satisfied in terms of our reserves, so I think we're fine that way. Akash, did you have any other comments on the report?
So regardless of which way we go, whether it's full demolition or demolition of the biodigester building or not demolishing it, Township of Chatsworth has enough money in reserves to fund our half of that. So it's our decision.
Thank you. Thank you. I will turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify that I don't think that we actually properly tabled and passed that amendment. And that would have altered the very last sentence of the original recommendation to include that the board recommend that no further demolition of the site is required at this time, and that approval of proposal dated April 24th, 2026 is conditional upon GHD honoring the quote provided. So that was an amendment that was briefly discussed, but I don't believe that there was a mover and a seconder. And
No. That suits, okay. We'll go with Deputy Mayor McKay and Mayor Mackey for mover and seconder. Am I seeing questions? I just want to be sure. Move this through. Okay. So if there's no further questions, and we are voting on the amendment at this point. Okay, I will call the vote. Okay. And then we are back to the main motion as amended. So I will call the vote on that if there's no further discussion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So we are through with everything on that section. Okay. Did you have something you wanted added, Scott? Or a question? Before we go to the budget?
Yeah, I can just mention it now. I'm just wondering if we should be looking at, I know our fees and charges are moving up based on CPI, at least their tipping fees, but just based on the information that we received today, that it ranges between 18 and 25 per cubic meter. Is there a lost opportunity for some revenue here. The gentleman has additional material, and as Ryan pointed out, we have additional capacity. Should we, I mean, the amount that we're charging for material coming from Jordan Bluff and Chatsworth, we've got that rate set. But if we were wanting to offer additional capacity for material coming from outside of here, would it make sense to look at another rate that is somewhere between the 18 and 25 as a revenue generator? We need to bring in more revenue. So it kind of comes in to speak with the other, but I was just caught off guard that we're significantly lower than what he's having to pay in other places,
Yeah.
especially at 25. So I guess, should we look into that? I mean, Ryan's already spoken with capacity. We have lots of capacity.
Yeah.
Do we want to bring more material in as a revenue generator? I guess would be the question for the board.
I wondered if, so if I'm incorrect, I apologize, but I think you're talking about, we've set a fee for Chatsworth and Georgian Bluff. Should we consider an out of area fee?
I mean, if we have capacity, if we want to generate more income and
And if he's currently having to take
drive,
Beeford product elsewhere,
if we could charge, I mean, at 20, let's say, we split the difference between 18 and 25, so 21 for an out of area fee, and I'm not sure if that is what it should be, but at least offer that up if we do have the capacity and want to generate some income. Just a thought for the board to consider. Operationally, I'm not sure about that part of Ryan, but we've always been taking material from outside of the area for a long time to that site. So
I guess it's not something we sort of.
Well, it's just that we haven't made an agreement with A1. And he stated only from Chatsworth and Georgian Bluffs. So if he decides, oh, well, that isn't a bad deal, $21 we're talking, I'll maybe haul it from me for whatever. When do we know, like A1 should be strictly Township of Chatsworth and Georgian Bluffs. And then if another company, altogether different company than A1 want to haul in, that's when they get charged $21. But it'd be very difficult to, like he already knows we charge $15 and some. Is he going to be honest enough to say, this is from me for I'm going to pay the 21? It could get confusing, but if it was another whole company altogether, that approach this.
go ahead.
I'll maybe just ask that staff look at possible revenue generating situations and bring that back to the board. I don't want to put anybody on the spot right now. Terry mentions, there's different companies, and I'm not sure if our rate, I think our rate right now for that site really isn't dependent upon you being from Chatsworth or from Georgian Bluffs. We've got a set rate. Am I correct on that?
And yes,
Go
I
ahead,
stand to
Sam.
be corrected, but it appears to me like we have a set rate and we use an honor system. So I think you've alluded to that, when we really don't know.
Yeah.
So I
You
guess-
can't smell the difference between
Yeah, that's right.
one area or another where we want to
But coloring.
So we should look at, is there capacity? Do we want to look at additional material coming? By the sounds of it, we've known all along that it's a lot easier to dump at our site. We've heard that from other haulers that, if the price was reasonable, they'd want to come to this site as opposed to bouncing over a rough old field. So we've heard that in the past. So I think it's just maybe an opportunity to explore some revenue generation for the site. And
I want to leave
determination
it
there.
for staff if somebody has more information too, but I think it would be appropriate to ask staff to look into that and we can connect with that. Given the conversation that I've had with the contractor, he has asked for, I think he said that he's asked for other areas who would be willing to take waste, because he does have a challenge to find places, and there hasn't been a lot of openness to that based on what I'm hearing from him and talking with some of my colleagues. So maybe there's an opportunity there. We can look into that. And I can talk to the contractor about how we would manage that. I'm sure in a day he probably crosses municipal borders more than once a day, so.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure we need a motion. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the staff have heard the discussion, and if they're willing to, look in and bring something back to the board, I'm fine with that.
I will look to the clerk, who probably is
Wanting to,
wondering why we went off agenda. Go ahead.
because you asked.
I did, I know.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was sort of crafting a motion, just so this doesn't get lost. I recognize that we're about to enter into a transition from municipal term to municipal term. And just in the interest of it not getting lost, I would recommend a motion in this case so that it is captured on our directions log. And I have been slightly ignoring that we're off script and have started crafting what's under new business. So I'll leave that with you. The direction could be very general, that staff be directed to investigate revenue generation opportunities and review rates of surrounding municipalities.
So I'll move her in a seconder, and Mayor Mackey, Deputy Mayor McKay, and all in favor. That is carried, and we'll get back to the script then, which has us on item 8.2, budget to actual comparison. So the recommendation is that the board receive the budget to actual comparison as of May 31st, 2026 for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mayor Mackey, Deputy Mayor McKay, and Sam, over to you.
Thank you. And through, as this board has convened, we were trying to get some budget to actuals in front of you. So we do have the 2026 approved budget, which was approved by this board at their December 9th meeting. And that should be December 9th, 2025, not 2026. When looking at this, we tried to do what we're calling an implied year to date to avoid some timing differences. So for many of the expenditures, we did take the total annual budget divided by 12 times 5, representing the 5 months. For things such as insurance that we do pay at the start of the year for the full year, we put that into the implied budget to avoid those timing differences. Overall, we are relatively in line. We still do have some timing differences between the implied year-to-date budget and the actuals. Heat and hydro, the implied budget is for 5 months of service. Actuals are only for 4, as we hadn't received May's cost. We have not yet reported at the time of authoring this report 1 month of Owen Sound septic services, so there is a slight timing difference there between budget and actual. We also have experienced slightly higher than anticipated tipping fees and sewage revenue. This is more so due to more material being disposed. It is not a significant amount. It is not a reflection of that change that we had made from 2025 to 2026 for the cost of disposal. We are tracking approximately a slightly under 100,000 more gallons, and I do not know what the conversion of gallons to cubic meters is off the top of my head. Bank interest, we are tracking lower. That is due to the decrease in prime, as well as some of those cash flows that had been held at the biodigester level being cash flow to Georgian Bluffs to repay that outstanding due to from that you saw had decreased on your financial statements. Overall, it is relatively comparable, your budget, to what we have been experiencing actually. There will be some changes around the capital line given this board's discussion and what the councils do next. Are there any questions?
Any questions? I'm not seeing any, so I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. We have no unfinished business. We already dealt with new business, no closed session. Date of the next meeting will be determined by the board. So if there's no further business, I will now call for adjournment of this meeting at 3:09 p.m. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor McKay, Mayor Mackey, all in favor. That is carried. And I will thank GHD for staying with us today and for being here today and answering all of our questions. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you to GHD and staff and colleagues for coming, and for board members for making yourselves available. I know this is tough it's an extra meeting, but it's to keep this moving forward, we needed to do this, so thank you.
Ryan and Rachel, can I just ask, now that it's unfortunate that we're left in a situation, right, the meeting's done? Okay,
Not yet.
I thought we were adjourned.